Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next short attention span webinar. This one is going to be fun, Kelly.
I assume you're not talking about the Will Ferrell movie here, right, Bill?
I thought about that. I thought about
Ugh.
that. You can wear your hat. Yeah, it does that. Ma, the meatloaf. No, wait, that's not old school. Um, but that is Will Ferrell.
Right.
The idea here is, and I got thinking about this. In fact, I think my printing impressions column this month is going to be on the subject of selling yesterday versus selling today, and
Mm.
that column grew out of this of writing this webinar. As a matter of fact, it's not May, it's June. I think I'm writing June's now. I don't know. I can never remember. In any event, the idea here, Kelly, is if we asked a veteran sales rep, for example, where do I look for prospects? What would an old school rep say? What do you think?
I'm going to tell you what I think an old school rep would say, and then I tell you what me as an old school rep would say. I
Okay.
think old school reps would say they rely on referrals from happy customers,
Hmm.
that they pay a lot of attention to their environment, so they might look at a directory as they were going an appointment, and that they pay a lot of attention to their environment in terms of just what they see around them, looking at printed pieces and questioning where that came from and who produced it and why, things like that. I probably about 15 years ago, and when I was getting my career started, used to use the library quite a bit,
Hmm.
using research tools at the library. So I think those are a lot of the ways, and you notice we didn't say internet or computer one single time in any of these because we're kicking it old school. Lots and lots of ways to find prospects that don't have to do with turning on your little machine.
Yeah, and I think that you'd also hear someone say build your network, and I don't think they don't mean
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn. They mean get to know as many people as possible and then stay in touch with them, and that
Yep.
that truly is old school. Now that we know the prospects, Kelly, what about getting the appointment? What do you think an old school sales rep would tell you to do and to get that appointment?
Oh, yeah, this is going to lead us right down the path of what we always say not to do these days. But back in the day, it was as simple as calling up a company and saying, I need to speak to the person who's in charge of buying your printing,
Yeah.
and then getting on the phone with that person and saying, I'd love to come in and tell you all about our great equipment and how we can produce great printing for you. I'll show you some samples and we'll look at the projects that you're working on. And up until, I don't know, Bill, what would you say, 10, 15 years ago, that worked really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
we know
then
that today it's a very different ball game. So,
I agree. I think that the one thing that's why they call them the fundamentals, right? They don't change. Solve the problem, earn the order. So the way to get appointments is to do as Dale Carnegie told us to go way, way back 75 years ago. Figure out what their needs are
mhm.
and solve the problem, and that's how you get the appointments. You're addressing your request for an appointment in terms of, I understand you've got this issue. I've got a solution for that. So that is
Mhm.
old school for sure. What about keeping the customers, Kelly? Because it's I've long said you're as good as the last job you shipped in. So what was different, and how could an old school sales rep teach us how to keep our customers?
Well, again, to me, this is all about contact and how we express ourselves. To me, this falls under the heading of things like writing thank you notes, conducting regular account reviews to make sure that the communication that's happening is happening both ways, that you're asking your customers for feedback as well as keeping them informed about what's going on in your organization, and not just relying on, oh, everything's on email now, or since we've got them set up with a web store, they don't even have to talk to anybody over here anymore. We want to make sure that we remember and go back to the days where we are just human beings interacting with each other. So letting them know they're important to you, letting them know that you appreciate them, letting them know that you're there for them. That's definitely old school, and a lot of people are not doing that today, I don't think.
And I think the other thing there, Kelly, is to get ahead of them. Where are they going?
Mm-hmm.
Why is Wayne Gretzky the number one scorer of all time? He went where the puck was going. Everybody else weren't where the puck is. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to anticipate. And then communication as well. And this is kind of interesting I think this is probably one of the big advantages that, from a technological standpoint, obviously today's sales rep, if you will, has. And that's not what I was referring to here. Really, what I meant was I should said how often to communicate. It's great that you've got all these different tools to communicate, but I would think that one of the real values that a good sales rep has is to say, here's the information in advance. Don't wait for the customer to call and ask you where the job is. They should know. So I think really that's it's the importance of communication as opposed to just here's a cell phone that we didn't have before. Uh,
Hmm.
that's old school fundamentals right there. Make certain your clients have the information they need before they ask for it. It's when I talk to people about why they do business with the rep that they do, this is one of the things that comes up right here. I don't have to call my sales rep because he's on it. He's on it,
Yeah.
and I know these things ahead of time.
Well, and it's also remembering that there are, 15, 20 years ago, we didn't even have to deal with voicemail as much as we did today. It was more customary that you would call a person and they would actually pick up the phone.
Yeah,
So there's that kind of shift. But I think to your point is to remember that showing, just physically showing up is still a way to go. Like if you imagine if you heard a customer say, "Well, I don't give business to so and so anymore. I haven't seen him in a year."
mm,
Like they still do want to. I mean, I know we've got to convince ourselves that everybody's kind of walking around in their own little bubble anymore, but people do actually still want to see you, especially if you show up with donuts. So just remember that there are still kind of old school ways to communicate with people, and to
well,
keep that communication open and continually flowing.
I'm just checking my clock. It's midday in Chicago. You're getting hungry, aren't you? Is that what?
Yes.
I figured. We'll do a short attention span webinar on food. That'll make you happy.
There we go. Yum.
And then finally, not finally, I think we have one more. It's how to
Hmm.
stay motivated. Old school methods for staying motivated. I don't know that there's any real trick to it, but certainly there is a need for it. Motivation is something that it's got to come from within. You've got to have something out there that you would like to have. And this might be as simple, Kelly, as saying, hey, look, if you make so X many calls in a week, take yourself out to lunch
Hmm.
on Friday. It could be that simple. You don't have to make it
This
super complicated.
Right. I think that what this really does require is a tremendous amount of, and I shouldn't even say a tremendous amount, but some self-awareness. To understand, is it recognition that makes you happy? Is it money that makes you happy? And again, for any bosses out there listening, any managers out there listening, it's a very fine art to be able to figure out what that is for your people and figure out, designing programs and ways to satisfy those because
Right.
everybody's different. Some people, if you had a sales contest and told them that the winner got a day off, some people would absolutely think that was the best thing ever, that the time is what's really valuable to them, where another person might say $50 is what I really want, where somebody else might say my picture in the lobby for a month is the most important thing. So understand, again, if you've got direct reports, how they get motivated, and if it's you individually, figure out what motivates you and what and figure out how to come up with a plan that satisfies that.
And this has got to be the biggest one of all. I think the a veteran sales rep. The thing that really strikes me about old school salespeople is they don't appear to be working that hard.
Yeah.
I think the guy that sells $2 million is not working as hard as the guy that sells $200,000,
Yeah.
and that's just crazy to me. But the way a veteran sales rep manages time is remarkable. And if you're looking at someone in your office that is really good at this, note their preparation. I believe that preparation is 75% of time management. Of course, that's what makes me old school and a good time manager. But prepare, watch them look ahead to the day, the month, the week, and see how they manage their time. Kelly, what else would a veteran old school sales rep advise a young one?
As far as managing time goes,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
just
yeah.
just in general.
No, managing time. Can you think of anything else?
Again, I think a lot of them might think that the devices that are actually created to make us more efficient might actually be a hindrance.
Yeah.
And the reason that they would say that is because your head is down in your iPhone all the time because you're goofing around on Facebook or you're tweeting something or something like that, when he's going, I got a calendar in my pocket. I know what day it is. I know what time it is.
Yeah,
I know where I'm going.
yeah.
I don't need any of the rest of that stuff. So, again, I think there's some negative connotations to old school and some positive connotations to old school, and I think that I think Bill, you and I have kind of illustrated that we kind of have a fondness and a great deal of respect for some of those fundamentals, things that have
Mm.
been working for 30 and 40 years, and say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, and I remember being very well organized before my Palm Pilot,
Yeah.
before my iPhone, and most of it was either on a pad of paper or it was in my head.
Yep.
Simply remembered things, and that seems to be a foreign concept. So,
Right.
all right, well there you go, gang. There's a couple of old schoolers, one older than the other. That would be me, and giving you some advice. And I had to clarify that for you, Kelly.
Thanks,
Um,
Bill.
and we'll talk to you all next week on another short attention span webinar.